right, now we're now being joined by Arise News analyst, Dr. Constance Ikokwu. Good morning. Thanks for being here.
Yes, good morning.
All right. At the back of all the low-key 64-year independence of Nigeria, we had that hashtag Fearless in October protest. However, there was a low turnout of people coming to the streets. Some people were saying it seems like there's a protest fatigue. What's your sense in the factors that are contributing to this?
Nkechi, you're absolutely right. The protest that we saw yesterday was toned down in most parts of the country. And it may not have been what the organizers hoped for or planned, but it did not pack the expected punch. When you compare it to the End Bad Governance protest, for instance, it sort of is mellow. And then when you even compare it with the End SARS protest, it's completely fades away. It looks like under this government, what we are seeing is that protests are symbolically dying. It has been able to prevent these demonstrations, these sort of get-togethers from being heavy or from packing a wallop. Having said that, I think that the message is clear to the government. It is aware that it has an acute crisis on its hand. Yes, it has been able to sort of divide organizers so that some people decide not to come out for protests, others say, you know what, we'll just sit at home. At the same time, it does not change the current situation on the ground, which is that a lot of people are distressed, that they are spending astronomical amounts of money to go to work and having to receive wages that are severely diminished by high inflation. So all in all, whether you judge the protest successful or not, the crisis is there and it's not a pretty situation.
Well, in one of the reports I watched, a respondent captured this independence quite succinctly. He said, I'm quoting him, he said, how is it that Nigeria is celebrating its independence and you have security men all littered all over the streets? How is that so? I mean, what do you make of that statement?
That's a very good description. But indeed, you know that we've always had security men, whether it's policemen or soldiers in our streets. I think it comes from the many years of military rule where they needed the security officials, especially soldiers, out in the streets to defend them because they were not legitimate and they were not legal according to the people. So that has carried on into a civilian administration such that everywhere you go in Nigeria, you will see soldiers, even in public transport, refusing to pay their fair share of the transport costs.
So how does that
There is
speak
there is nowhere in the world that you see soldiers used in that way. But also we have severe security challenges where the police is not enough or cannot sufficiently provide the security that we need. So soldiers are called in. And so when you see this on Independence Day, it is not surprising at all. We have been living with this every day. So there was nothing extraordinary or special about that particular
So how
day.
does this speak to the people who are practicing democracy? Are we really then practicing democracy?
Yeah, so that's the question then. You would ask, what kind of democracy are we practicing? I think looking to the future, people see a government that is unyielding and dysfunctional. But it still has some time, a couple of years, to change the situation. At the same time, progress is a function of quality leadership. And the leadership is something that you either have or you do not have. If you don't have it, then you cannot give it. So it's
You can't give what you don't have.
Exactly. You cannot give what you do not have. But there are a lot of expectations going forward since the government has admonished people to be patient, that they are carrying out reforms, and that there will be changes. They're looking forward to see those changes that have been promised.
And I think having a lot of security agents littered around was more prominent here in Abuja, being the capital. If you look at Lagos State, the police, including the Commissioner of Police, was actually walking with the demonstrators, and they made it clear that, look, we're here to actually protect the demonstrators and make sure we don't have any sort of nuisances. And I think that's how security agents should work when people are demonstrating. The ones here in Abuja, in fact, there were soldiers, there were police, there was road safety, there was VIO, all the uniformed men were out.
There was tear gas, as you
and
can
there
see.
was tear gas, even in a place where people were not even really demonstrating. But let's talk about how the government celebrated the Independence Day. They already said it was going to be low key. It was done in Villa. We saw some states also doing theirs in some stadiums that were pretty much empty. It was quite dull. What's your sense of how that went compared to how we used to celebrate Independence Day way back, where everywhere would be green and white, local governments would organize like competitions, kids would be out in the park? And also, what's your thoughts on the reaction that people were giving to President Tinubu's speech, especially that National Youth Conference that he mentioned?
Nkechi, yesterday's festivities were a reflection of the prevailing circumstances in the country today. As Sunday often says, you cannot beat a child and ask him or her not to cry. Things are really tough for people. There is no sentiment there are no joyful sentiments at the moment, especially when the government has severally tried to clamp down on people who have tried to express their displeasure with what is going on. And you can see that from the Vox Pop, the reports that we have been publishing all along. People say that they are expressing what they are feeling, and it is true. Every one of us sitting down here, we're also going through it. The cost of fuel that is also affecting every other thing in the country. Is what it is. Again, a lot of people are expecting that there will be change. What this government does with the current situation is up to it. The ball is really in its court, and it has a lot of work to do.
Now, you talked about clamping down, and again, one of the respondents also, I dare say, succinctly captured another side to this story, which is that he came out to protest, but he looked around him. He didn't see any protester. And he was wondering, are Nigerians saying that they're okay with the way things are? What is really happening? He even talked about why they were sharing rice, and he was supposed to collect a ticket or something, and that was a Herculean task to even do that. So what is really happening? You remember in Bangladesh, it was the protest of the citizens, led by the young people, students, that succeeded in relieving the country's president of her position. So is it that the people are lax, or the government is succeeding in intimidating people not to protest? You remember the case of when some bad governance people, they were told, sign a pact that you will not protest again.
It is a mix of different things. Remember that over 1,000 people from the End Bad Governance protests are still being held by the government. A lot of them without trial, and a lot of them do not have the funds to go to court or to defend themselves in court. And so you have that. You do have a lot of parents that have won their wards not to go out to the streets. There are some people that died during that last protest. So you also have that general feeling. There's also the fact that the government has moved in and convinced a lot of the organizers to not go ahead with the protest. So you have division amongst them. Some continued with the plan, some fell out of the plan. So you have that. At the end of the day, like I said, it does not change the situation on ground, which is that the economic situation is very tough. And no matter what you do to clamp down on this restiveness, temporarily you might be able to do that. In the long term, the crisis will unfold, and it might get to a point where you are unable to keep it down anymore. I think gradually, if care is not taken, we might be inching towards that type of scenario.
Which is dangerous.
All right, thank you so much.